Hi, everyone. It's really great to have you all here for Power Up Tech Talk, Understanding the Austin CPG Scene. Our Tech Talk series is with Hugh Forrest. This is one of our favorite series of conversations because it's really an opportunity for Hugh to sit down and have a roundtable conversations with our local leaders. And today is a special talk because it centers around the CPG scene in Austin. And as we all know, the Austin CPG scene continues to ramp up and thrive. And it couldn't be more exciting to have some of our key leaders in the industry here with us. And with that, before we turn it over to Hugh, I'd love to take an opportunity and to thank a few of our sponsors that really help this programming be possible. So thank you to Accenture, Amazon, Metro, Capital Metro, Goodwill Central Texas, RSM, the City of Austin Small Business with Joy Miller, and Visa. And then we also want to give a shout out to the Austin Technology Incubator, KView, and the Statesman Local IQ. So with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Hugh Forrest, the Chief Programming Officer of South by, and a fantastic colleague and friend. So Hugh, with that, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday, November 12th edition of Power Up Tech Talk. Again, my name is Hugh Forrest. I'm the Chief Programming Officer at South by Southwest. I'm really excited about today's discussion. I think we're going to have some great insights about the Austin CPG scene. I'm really looking forward to talking to Amy and Kirsten about that. Also looking forward to lots of interaction with all of you who come to tune in today. So please type in questions and we'll try to get to those too. But before we get to this CPG discussion, I'm going to give you 3 quick and shameless plugs for South by Southwest. 1, panel picker voting started on Tuesday. That's where we let the community weigh in on some of the speaking proposals for this year's event. That panel picker voting runs through the end of the day on Friday, November 20th. Lots of great proposals there, about 2,500 total. You can find the panel picker interface at panelpicker.sxsw.com/vote. Again, that's open through Friday, November 20th. We also opened this week registration for South by Southwest Online 2021. For 2021, South by Southwest will mainly be a virtual event. There's still a possibility we'll do some kind of small in-person experience. The dates are March 16th through 20th. The current registration price is $149. That is a much lower price than what we have typically done in the past. And so I'm really excited how that opens up the event to a lot of new people. Get in while the getting's good there. And I also want to remind people that we are organizing the conference portion of the event a little bit differently this year. We have 7 themes that the conference portion of South by Southwest is focused on this year. We typically have some themes we cover, but we've never kind of announced them as early as we have this year. Those 7 themes are a new urgency, i.e. 2020, challenging text path forward, i.e. 2020, cultural resilience in the arts, this idea that tough times breeds great art, the rebirth of business, which is something I think we'll touch a little bit on today in our discussion, transforming the entertainment landscape, connection and disconnection, and the 7th theme is an uncharted future. Okay, that's my shameless plug for South by Southwest. If you have any South by Southwest related questions, big or small, please feel free to connect with me at hugh@sxsw.com, hugh@sxsw.com. Okay, that brings us to this afternoon's presentation, our discussion about the CPG scene in Austin. I have 2 great guests who know a ton more about this space than I do, and so I'm very anxious and excited to learn from them. Amy Stedman is someone I've known for quite a while. She is the co-founder and COO at Future Proof Brands, creators of Beatbox, Party Punch, Brizzy Seltzer Cocktails, and corkless canned wines. Future Proof is a disruptor in the beverage alcohol market that develops powerful brands that drive incremental profit in high growth categories. A double Longhorn, Stedman earned both her BS in advertising and her MBA in entrepreneurship at the University of Texas at Austin. Stedman's past experience included working in online marketing and agencies and in-house at the Central Texas Food Bank, running her own online marketing agency, and helping run the UT-based startup incubator Texas Ventures Lab. She also was a DJ for KVRX for many years. In 2011, together with her friends Brad Schultz and Justin Fenchel, Stedman founded Beatbox Beverages LLC. The company received national recognition after a 2014 appearance on ABC's Shark Tank, during which the company received a $1 million investment from Mark Cuban, which was his largest investment to date at that time. Kirsten Ross is the managing director of SKU, a world-class program that accelerates emerging CPG brands through a thriving community of serial entrepreneurs and industry experts. SKU's 14-week intense program provides emerging companies with access to industry leaders, key retailers, and the tools necessary to accelerate smarter, faster growth. In her role as managing director, Kirsten oversees the selection of the 6 to 8 participating companies, curates the 40-person mentor group of leading CPG experts, and manages 30+ advisory board mentors that are part of the extensive SKU network. Prior to joining SKU, Kirsten was a broker at Wortham Insurance, which was acquired in August 2018 by Marsh, a resident of Terrytown. Kirsten is an active parent at Good Shepherd Episcopal School and is on the steering committee of Invest to Elect, a woman-run political group here in Austin. Okay, Amy and Kirsten, welcome to Tech Talk. It's great to have you here this afternoon. I'm going to start off with the basics because people like me need basics. Amy, and we're going alphabetical here, in the context of what you do at Naturally Austin and future-proof brands, easy for me to say, what's your definition of a CPG? What is it?
So CPG stands for consumer packaged goods. So traditionally that would mean a fast moving consumer good, like something with a barcode that's in a grocery store that you're replenishing in your home. So food, beverage, soap, those kinds of things. I think our community here at Naturally Austin, just our community here in Austin in general, we've kind of expanded that to be more consumer brands because we have so many awesome consumer brands that are not part of that traditional model, that are part of our community, from direct to consumer online garden clubs like Gardenia to really awesome consumer brands like Kendra Scott here in town too. So consumer brands is one thing that we're focusing on, and then CPG within that are those wonderful barcoded packaged items that you purchase for yourself when you go grocery shopping.
Excellent, thank you. Kirsten, same question back to you. Is your perspective on what CPGs are any different from Amy's, given what you guys do at SKU?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, Hugh. Amy says it so beautifully. Amy and I work together pretty closely in this community. And so we have a very similar definition. So CPG, I think there's a little bit of a confusion. Is it consumer product goods or consumer packaged goods? I think we're all talking about the same thing. You find it, you buy it as a consumer, whether it finds its way in your hands through a traditional retail store or direct to consumer. It's interesting to see the evolution. It's no longer just a beverage or a beauty brand. I mean, it can be like a gardening club, or it can be an over-the-counter product that exists more in the medical space. But as long as you as a consumer have the ability and the access to buy it directly, whether it be from a retailer or a company, it gets in your hands, and we call it CPG.
Excellent, thank you. And you both have mentioned this a little bit, but tell us, give us a little more context on some of the more famous, biggest, well-known CPGs that have come out of Austin or are coming out of Austin, things that will give us a little more real-world context there.
Yeah, so, back in 2009, when Austin got on the map, that was Sweet Leaf Tea, was our biggest homegrown brand. Now we have really big brands like Epic Bar. Hershey acquired Amplify here in town, which is Skinny Pop. So if you buy Skinny Pop, that's from here in Austin as well. Kettle and Fire, the bone broth brand, actually moved here last year. Lots of brands are moving here from around the country as well, but Siete, obviously another big Austin CPG brand that's done really well. You'll see it in the grocery store, and Waterloo. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds. So if you go to the grocery store and it says Texas on it, it's probably part of our community here, which is awesome.
And I know I've pressed you on this question many times, Amy, but why so much CPG in Austin? Was there a particular tipping point or turning point? Is there something specific about our fair city? How did this happen? Organically or less organically? Tell us the secrets of what happened here.
Yeah, so I first started living in Austin in 2005. And
so you started it in 2005?
Yes, exactly. I started it. No, but you saw a lot of Austin's focus at that time was all about the tech bubble and the tech scene here. And when I would go to South by Southwest, that was a lot of what the conversation was about. And then I think, just us having really awesome retailers like Whole Foods growing here, H-E-B's become one of the most important retailers in the whole country over the past 10, 20 years. We also have such an innovative community that comes from that tech startup scene, that entrepreneurial kind of trained community, and just in terms of being a lean startup, in terms of having that collaboration with other founders and other mentors and things like that. We had a model from the tech community for CPG here in town because of that. And then also we have our creative community here. So a lot of the brands that you see on shelves really come alive because we have such great artists in this town. And the brands really, shine so brightly as compared to other communities because we have that here as well. So I think, we also now have some funding available for CPG brands that other communities don't have. So, funds that have started here, from bigger funds like Kavu to the earlier stage funds like Springdale, and then the funding and connections to angels and things like that SKU has provided. So I think, those things from having access to funding, having access to retailers that can actually, they support emerging brands at H-E-B and Whole Foods and Buc-ee's, another type of big chain that's based here, and getting those to a path to not only be successful here in Texas, but nationwide, right? So a brand from Austin can start in a Whole Foods downtown and then expand to the whole country from there. And there's a true path in the ecosystem to grow, from funding to talent to those access to buyers.
Thank you. Kirsten, additional thoughts on that of why Austin has developed the way it's developed?
Yeah, I feel like the CPG scene in Austin took a very parallel path just maybe a few years later than the tech community in Austin. So I always envisioned, had it not been for Dell and Trilogy, would we be the tech community that we are? Had it not been for Whole Foods and a couple of early wins like Sweet Leaf and Deep Eddy, that's what has really created the CPG scene here. And I think Austin is a wonderful community for entrepreneurs, and there's very much so a pay it forward mentality with people who have seen success, and it's very much a rising tide lifts all boats community. And so with CPG seeing some, a good track record of successes. And I mean, Amy mentioned quite a few, whether it's Epic or Deep Eddy or Tito's. I mean, the list is just growing in what we're seeing. And those individuals are pumping out the talent and kind of building up the Austin brand cachet to a point that's really drawing in additional entrepreneurs into this space.
And I will brag on our fair city as we have really awesome talent here. But of anywhere in the country, what I hear is that people are more friendly, more collaborative, will take more coffee meetings, more random Zoom meetings than anywhere else in the country, which just enhances all of the things that we're talking about, and especially innovation, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you both referenced it in that answer. How much crossover carryover is there between tech entrepreneurs and CPG entrepreneurs. We certainly, I think, are all familiar with how much Dan Graham is involved on both sides of that fence. But is he an anomaly there, or is there a lot of that? And are there different skill sets involved, or are they in some ways analogous?
I mean, I'll take that one. What SKU does is really kind of create a mentor group that supports the companies coming through our program, and they're angel investors. They're all accredited investors, and I'm seeing very much so a patterning of success with angel investors, whether they had historically had a tech background and took a few leaps of faith into some founders and some products they really got behind, to see some returns on their investment there. And it does kind of catch fire. And I love it when I get in a meeting with a bunch of people who've invested in tech, or, in the tech scene, and they can get all jazzed using acronyms that I don't know. And I just get to be like, here's the product. Do you want to try it? Do you like it? And there's such a tangibility over it that I really think people who get, down in the weeds when it comes to technology enjoy the levity that so much of CPG could be, which is just like, hey, it's a new flavor of sparkling water. Everyone can get their minds around that.
Yeah, I would say some of the synergies as well. Like, when I went to business school at UT, it was all about market validation, lean startup, try and prove your product out as quickly and cheaply as you can before you spend a lot of money on it. And so those types of lessons that they're using in the tech world absolutely apply to food and beverage and CPG startups. And I think that's definitely been a cool part of being part of the city and being involved in those worlds, is getting exposed to those kinds of thinking. I'm also part of the entrepreneurs organization here in town, EO, so collaborating with a lot of other entrepreneurs. And a lot of us are using something called EOS, which is a system for setting goals and having meetings and kind of growing your fast-paced company. So that's another kind of system similar to Lean Startup or whatever that I've seen a lot of tech companies use, and I've seen food and beverage companies use too, and it be successful, and something we can chat about together and collaborate on.
Good. Kirsten, you mentioned being in meetings with angel investors. Is investing in a CPG startup possibly a faster return, or is there any rhyme or reason or in that versus a tech startup?
Well, I feel like there's some multiples that can be similar, but also can be vastly different. I think the interesting part about CPG from an investment perspective is you can, especially from an angel, the angel round, is meeting the founder and the founder's story and the founder's passion towards their business, and then how great the product is are kind of the two things you invest in. And I think from getting your head around where the company can go, just getting behind the founder and behind the product is a lot more attainable in the CPG world than the technology world. But I do see that, reliance on the angels and kind of that support as the companies are scaling and growing is really important. And we're lucky to be here in Austin that has an active angel community.
Thank you. Another question I'm fascinated with, and I've asked Amy before, but in Austin, nationally, whatnot, would the CPG scene and ecosystem have evolved the way it did and as quickly as it did if not for something like Shark Tank? I mean, doesn't everyone want to pretend they're Mark Cuban on Shark Tank and can invest in these things, or would it have happened on its own otherwise?
I mean, that is a great question. I mean, Amy, you probably have something to say about your Shark Tank experience, but I do think Shark Tank really did educate, a broad population base on what it's like to, scale a company, what questions to ask, what does it look like to raise money. And I do think that, strong show and the popularity it attracted definitely fed into the whole consumer craze and just the general understanding about what it takes to scale a company. But Amy, I'm curious, you were on Shark Tank. You got the Mark Cuban investment.
Yeah, it was certainly impactful for me, right? I mean, I have the most biased kind of answer here, but I mean, we did a promotion for Shark Tank last year for 10 years. They called it Decade of Dreams. And so if you think about 10 years, actually this year I was just watching an episode where there was an entrepreneur that was going on there that said, I used to watch Shark Tank when I was a kid. And, you know, they were now an entrepreneur on the show. And like, of course, Mark Cuban's going like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But I mean, there's a whole legacy of families growing up watching Shark Tank together, and the inspiration of that entrepreneurial stories in everybody's living room, you know, growing up, and what that might inspire in the new generation is really cool to see. Yeah, I'm a big fan, obviously, of Shark Tank.
I always say Shark Tank like turned the entrepreneur into a rock star. And I feel like you kind of see that, you know, throughout the last decade that it's been on the air.
Yeah, can I share like a really awesome anecdote about this? Very relevant, I promise. We were on Shark Tank in 2014. Seems like a very long time ago, but during that time, we got an email from a student who saw us on the show, was obsessed with the idea, wanted to be our intern. So he came on board. His name's Austin Alexander, and he, you know, was our intern for many years. And then he came on to be a sales associate with us and was a salesperson with us. During that time, he started an idea for a case that you put, a neoprene case that you put over your beer case. It's called the Kanga case. He actually started it with his friends, continued to work on it, and they actually went on Shark Tank and got an investment from Mark Cuban. And on the show, he said, like, this whole journey started because I saw another company on the show. They actually took me in as an intern, and I got to learn about entrepreneurship from them, and then go, and now he's doing his own thing. So super relevant. I wanted to bring it up. Very heartwarming story. But yeah, it's really fun to have an intern that goes and starts a Shark Tank company that gets an investment too. So all about that, moving it forward for the next generation.
Amy, you talked about it earlier. You said that you thought Austin was very welcoming, people very receptive to taking meetings. Flip that around a little bit. At this point, does a CPG startup that is based in Austin have a certain cachet? Does that help?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're a cool club, that's for sure. You know, people are looking at us from all over the country, which is awesome. But I'd love for us to be famous for something that really moves this industry forward, which is sustainability and inclusivity. So that's the kinds of things that Kirsten and I are really working on for our community to grow, but also to grow with an inspired message for the rest of the world as well. So that's kind of my big secret plans for how Austin's going to grow to be the big shining star.
That was a very nice transition. I appreciate that. But tell us more about that sustainability focus, and then we'll dive a little more into the inclusivity question.
Yeah, so for sustainability, you know, just personally, just being a human, forget about business for a second. We need to figure this out, you know, like just for spiritual and practical reasons, every working adult that's able-bodied in their 30s, 40s, and 50s should be trying to figure out how to change our global economy to make sense for this planet and to make sense for all of the people that are on this planet as well. So inclusivity and sustainability. So in my area, I was like, okay, do I quit my job and, you know, start a climate change nonprofit? Or do I do the things that I've been doing in my own company and talk to other entrepreneurs about it and try to make a bigger impact by doing it on a B2B scale? So that was a big part of my motivation for starting Naturally Austin in the first place, was how can I engage other entrepreneurs, not just about growing, but about growing responsibly. So that's really our mission. And so we've developed a sustainability program for next year that's quite robust, that I'm really excited about. And the whole point of it is to encourage anybody that wants to do this work to give them the maximum support and resources to, you know, reduce waste in their business, to source things more locally and sustainably, to, you know, work with the city and get all the benefits that they can. So we're trying to, as Naturally Austin, to create those connections and support those people and get them money too, to do this work. So we're really excited about that. This year we've had a lot of webinars and education. We hosted a sustainability and packaging panel in around Earth Day in April that had more than 200 attendees. So we know that the thirst is there from our community for more leadership in this area. So we're really excited about launching that.
And is that what the naturally part of the name refers to? Is this the sustainability piece?
Yeah, so the mission of Naturally Austin is to foster responsible entrepreneurship in the natural products industry. So, that is what I mentioned earlier of trying to help all of these, because there's not perfect solutions, right, for food and beverage. Like, it's very hard to try to have a low impact business model the way that things are currently set up. So it's all about collaborating as an industry to push this industry forward so that we can have fully circular beverage packaging, for example, one very small thing that, I'm personally very passionate about. And there's a million other things that we need to solve as well. So it's all about building that community at Naturally Austin so that we can develop those collaborations for the future.
And just to dovetail on what Amy's saying, I mean, both of us are involved with organizations that have tentacles into other markets within the US. And so best practices are bubbling up everywhere, and sharing those best practices and really just moving the entire industry forward is something that we can do when we educate and share good ideas. And what I love is the strategics, the bigger companies that are doing a lot of the acquiring, whether it's General Mills or Procter and Gamble. I mean, they're looking towards things like sustainability and what the effects are on environment when looking at companies that they're acquiring. And so it's an easy line to draw from the founders and the smaller brands that they're building up to make sure that they have a lens to that in their own business and are working towards it. So I really think it's something that we are just lucky to be able to just kind of collect the great ideas and bring them all together and just educate the people in Austin how to build like the strongest brand.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna shift to the second part of that, where Amy was a few minutes ago. We know that the startup industry, one of the challenges of the startup industry, particularly on the tech side, is very male dominated. The bulk of funding goes to startups that are founded by males. The statistics for women started found-ups and or people of color, Latinx startups are abysmal. Is that any different? Is the CPG scene more inclusive here in Austin nationally? What's your experience there? And if so, why?
I'll happily go first.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I do think it's different. I love the fact that Amy and I are sitting here as two females on this panel. I love that if you asked me, who could fill in for my position if I wasn't able to go here, I'd probably think of 4 other women who are just like are making a difference in the CPG scene. And, to go even beyond gender, there is an attainability in this consumer space where anyone could have a good idea and so many people's needs are being met. So whether you're a minority or a person, or a female or living in a rural, area or living inner city, like you all have like a consumer idea that you can really build up. And, at SKU, I think it was track 7. This is a couple of years ago. I didn't have a lens of diversity when I was selecting the cohort to come in. And I just looked down and I was like, I literally just was like, this is the best business. This is the best product. I looked down, I was like, 5 out of 7 companies had a minority, like as a founder, part of kind of the teams, the founding teams. And I was just like, without any intention, this is what bubbles up as the best businesses in this, round. And of course, we always want to be, testing ourselves and making sure we're doing the most. But I do think CPG has a path that's probably easier than some other industries to really get involved and really, build a great brand around. And so,
and is there?
Oh yeah.
Is there I mean, why is that path easier? Is there an easy, a relatively easy explanation for that, or did that just kind of morph this way?
I mean, I'm gonna go out a bit on a limb here, but like I feel like you have to actually have an education to understand coding and just like the complex aspect of software, the architecture. And in CPG, it doesn't really matter where you come from. If you can get in the kitchen and create a product, I think that's all it takes. Whether it's your grandmother's recipe or something new that you thought of, or you just had the creative mind to. I saw today somebody because we're all in masks and we can't see each other smile. Somebody cut like a hole in the mask and put some clear film in front of it. I was like, oh, it's like the first masked smile I saw. And, it doesn't take, an education or really a background to bring forward a good idea.
Thank you. Amy, your thoughts on that inclusivity piece?
Yeah, so I'll just speak to my experience. My family moved here from Syria when I was 10 years old to become entrepreneurs. And so when I first started my company, I was my rich uncle, right? Like, I don't have any family in this country. I don't really have that many wealthy friends or anything. And so, yes, people can have ideas, but there are worlds of access to growing your ideas and having the time to grow your ideas and that kind of thing too, that plays into it. For me to get access to that world, I went to UT. Education provides access for people that don't have wealthy communities to have access to opportunity, right? But if you aren't going to go to UT, what do you do to have access to angel investors or people that could invest in you and your idea to move forward that aren't your best friend or whatever? And so I think that's where things like SKU and Naturally Austin, like, we have to create these community centers so that anyone can have access to those kinds of things that you need to get going and get started. So I think the idea that CPG, everybody eats food every day, everybody drinks beverages. So we're all thinking about it. And so it generates a lot of diverse founders. But I think we can do a little bit more. And, we are launching something. I don't know, Kirsten, if you want to talk a little more specifically about it, but to enable people to have access to opportunity at as much of a rate as, the wealthy white people of our community, I should say. So, yeah. That's my experience. And, I've had a really awesome experience, and, I'm half brown and half white. And as you can see, I'm super pale. I'm like way paler than even Kirsten is. So I like to use my paleness to advocate for, my browner family and friends so that, we can create a position of safety for everyone to be successful.
Yeah. And what Amy just alluded to is Naturally Austin and SKU last summer got our heads together with a few other amazing leaders in the community and decided our programming that we offer and our network and our and kind of the ecosystem that we built, like, we can use this for such great when turning up the dial on supporting minority-owned businesses. So we're going to be launching a collaboration called MO next spring, focused on minority-founded businesses. On the smaller side, they've got a great product. They want to know what to do with it and how to, really create a strong business around it. And so we're actively looking for partners to help us in that journey, whether it is the companies coming into the program or anyone who really wants to come in and support from an education base, a mentor base. We feel that great ideas like everything in Austin come together from so many different areas. And we're just excited about the group that we've built to surround this program and what it could do for the community and really just supporting minority-owned businesses getting the access.
Sounds great. And the aim is to launch that in spring 2021, yes?
Correct.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, we have a question, and encourage more questions out there. The question is, what local programming associations and groups would you recommend for ATX CPG founders who are hungry to dig in and team and learn as much as possible about this industry?
So I know Mark Nathan is in our attendees today, so I have to shout out the Texas Box newsletter, in addition to the Naturally Austin newsletter, the SKU newsletter. We also have several meetups here in town. There's a Facebook group called CPG and ATX that a lot of us are in for collaboration on the go. There's also just nationally Nosh and BevNet or Bev, they're kind of the high level media outlets for keeping track of the industry. But Kirsten, anything to add to that list?
I think you nailed it.
Good. And I'll rephrase that question slightly. And going back to your cool story about your intern, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got this great idea for a CPG startup, what's your typical advice?
Oh, well, first to subscribe to all those newsletters that I just mentioned. You know,
Read.
yeah, a membership to Naturally Austin is $65 for a year or free if you're a minority. And so, you know, we encourage you to join and gain access. And then once your company is ready to stand the SKU application process, you know, that's kind of the flow. And even now in 2020, they've actually launched a CPG program at UT for startups that Marissa Epstein's launching. So there's literally, UT has a CPG education, business education program. Naturally Austin has a community and education program. And then SKU has a, you know, defined accelerator for a smaller number of companies that are ready to go big. So, you know, we've got a great system for people here, and keep in touch. Go get some coffee with some people. That's the real way to do it. So.
And is it possible or realistic or doable to essentially bootstrap a CPG, or do you need to have some kind of funding to get off the ground?
It's very expensive to make stuff. It kind of just depends how big you want to go with it. But the problem in CPG is, you know, we can't just duplicate something digitally like you can in technology, right? So you get into this problem where at some point, you know, HEB is going to call, this is what happened to me. And they're going to say, hey, we want to do a big program with you. And you're going to have to come up with the cash to make that product before it goes in the program and you get paid for it, right? So, you know, early on, you're not able to get financing from a bank or whatever unless you're profitable or have really good financial history. And so oftentimes people will need some investment at that point. It just kind of depends how quickly you want to go. You can say no to those big orders and say, I'm just going to kind of grow it with the cash that I can for now and never take investment. And there's been many successful companies here in town that nobody hears about in the newspapers, but the founders are doing just fine, running their companies, owning 100% of them. But you know, if you do want to go very fast, that tends to be the road.
Yeah, I mean,
and
a great example.
Go for it, Kirsten.
Oh, I was going to say Tito's is a great example of a company that I'm pretty sure was all bootstrapped. I don't totally quote me on that. I'm pretty sure Tito's was all bootstrapped. So I mean, think about where he's gotten to, you know, just doing that. But it takes a really special business with a really special business model and distribution model to grow at any, you know, meaningful or aggressive rate without taking outside capital. But I do have to say, over the last 2 years, this need has been seen. And there's a lot of creative financing that's pouring in, and a lot of banks that are taking alternative underwriting approaches to businesses. So, I mean, hats off to the community for raising the flags that they needed help and they needed options. And, you know, I'm really impressed with what's coming to the table right now.
And to be clear on what you referenced just there, that those are all essentially local funding options, or if does a CPG founder need to go to the West Coast to get the funding they need?
So many of the kind of debt services, or the, you know, whether it's kind of you know, inventory kind of advancement money needed or anything like that. I mean, that's usually national facilities. There are some local ones, but the great thing about Austin is, you know, some of the banks are leaning in here to help support the emerging brands.
Good. Kirsten, you just mentioned Tito's, and we've talked a little bit, I think, about Waterloo, and Amy's very involved in the beverage space. Is the Austin scene relatively unique that there is so you find in a lot of different CPG ecosystems?
The ones I'm involved with, I see a lot of beverage brands, and I love the innovation in this space. I think it was looked over when you saw so much innovation happening in the more traditional packaged foods, like with the bars and the chips and things kind of center of the grocery store. I do think Austin has established quite the reputation of being a beverage city, and I love it. It's so fun. But I do see a lot of interesting brands bubbling up from, you know, the coast and from other areas as well. But I actually got shocked, and I read basically a statistic about the amount of money like an average millennial will spend on beverages during the day, like not food, but straight beverages. And it was like $21. And I was like, in between their Starbucks and, the interesting sparkling water and their kombucha, they really are voting with their dollars, and it's in the beverage space.
Does that count bar tabs or?
Max out bar tabs.
I mean, we're forgetting that there's just not alcoholic solids readily available. So liquids have taken over more of our lives.
I think there's somebody who's trying to fix that in Austin.
That's true. That's true. Boozy bites. Shout
How has the last 6 months with COVID impacted the CPG scene on various different levels here in Austin?
It's been totally normal. Everybody's just been doing the exact same thing.
That's what I thought.
Okay, well, high level, let's talk about it. So when it first happened, route to retail was the biggest thing. Route to market was the biggest thing that got disrupted. So if you were a restaurant, if you were being served in a restaurant or bar, if you were trying to meet with some buyers at Expo West, if you were trying to get in spring chain resets, all of that was supposed to happen in March and April, and all of it got delayed or canceled. So many of us that had innovation brands or new programs launching, like all of that got changed, which was very difficult. Another high level thing that happened was supply chain disruptions, right? So not only is it hard to get the product to shelves, it's also hard to get the product made because packaging, like there's a pandemic going on right now. I don't know if the tech world knows this, but cans. We have a can shortage for the next 2 to 4 years. It's crazy, but finding cans.
Why is that?
Because everything moved to packaging. Like when you used to get a glass of beer, now you're getting a can of beer, right? And even the non-alc brands are all moving to cans from plastic bottles are not seen as recyclable or eco-friendly, so everybody's moving to cans. So there's just this huge thing. So you've got supply chain issues, you've got route to retail issues, fundraising. A lot of us are fundraising. Everybody was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and not write any more checks the rest of the summer. Thank you. There has been fundraising happening, M&A happening, especially the back half of the year. But, in the spring, a lot of us got disrupted on that point too. So, I mean, it's been so many different challenges, but everybody, we're a very entrepreneurial community. So when come challenges, come solutions and innovation. And so that's what we've seen. From the direct to consumer acceleration. Okay, you can't put me on the shelf. We're going online. We're making bundles of other small emerging brands. We're having pop-up grocer events. Like these are the new innovations that are coming, and they're good experiences for consumers, right? They're really engaged with the brand. Like that's a really fun thing that's come from it, is like, hey, it's just me talking to my customers now instead of having to go through all these different channels as it used to be. And then from the supply chain issues, I mean, retailers, I think they just have to be flexible because literally nobody is unaffected. And so we've all just had to be really patient with each other in terms of, programs and plans and getting products on shelves and things like that. And so, now we just, the more clarity and the more, communication that you can provide with your partners during this time is just, it's like going through hard stuff in a relationship, right? When you get to the other side, you're much closer, you're much happier together that you've been through something. So I think that's kind of what the summary has been with. And I've been so impressed with our community, all the solutions we've come up with, from having our own expo here in Texas, Texpo, that we created in March, to developing these bundles that we sold, to, Naturally Austin, we actually just started providing health insurance to our members to respond to COVID as well. So we're all about the solutions.
Nice. Kirsten, other thoughts at your end on that?
And COVID, just COVID 2020, I mean, come on, this is just like nobody could have foreseen everything that happened. But the great thing with small brands is there was so much discovery happening, right? People are sitting there scrolling, trying to find the new best things, cooking and eating at home. Maybe they're cake mix that they always order was out of stock. So all of a sudden Instacart's populating the next 6 or 7 brands. And so there was a lot of discovery. And I think that was a huge silver lining for younger brands who, were putting themselves out there and, had attractive packaging if they could get it in stock to get the stuff on the shelves. But it's been a wild ride for CPG, but I think it's really creating some great brand loyalty and connections with the brands through it. So it's not been it's not been like the worst problem for this specific industry. It's just, it's definitely been an interesting challenge and place to navigate from.
Great, thank you. You talked a little bit, Kirsten, about the new program for spring 2021. Hopefully, we begin to get on the other side of COVID in that time frame. What do you see for the Austin CPG ecosystem in 2021 and the years forward? How will this mature? What will that mean? What different kinds of CPG products will evolve here?
Well, my crystal ball is officially broken. It shattered at some point in time. So any projection I'm making right now is like, no, I'm pulling it out of thin air. No, I really love seeing what happened in the ecosystem. And when we like banded together in such like a deeper way. And Amy, I don't know if you feel the same way. We're doing all these online events to replicate what we have been, historically done in person. And you think that people would be hitting all the Zoom fatigue, and yet we get on, like we did the Combo Loco for Naturally Austin, and there's still like 80, 90, 100 people showing up for like a happy hour at 6 p.m. And I just love the continued excitement in the CPG ecosystem. And over the last couple of months, I'm also really happy and thrilled with the amount of individuals relocating to Austin, and they're finding their way there. They know about SKU, they know about Naturally, and they're finding their way into our ecosystem and bringing such different perspectives on, what's happening. So I'm excited that in 5 years, Austin will have grown so significantly just based on the maturity that's happening in this industry. And there's also individuals really working on where I would say what was potentially the deficiency in Austin, which is we're so great at branding, we're so great at like having this entrepreneurial, innovative spirit, but then manufacturing. And some of those things were definitely like a gap with, the potential to scale. And people are coming and trying to solve those problems as well, whether it's Michael Renna or people who are just really building out the manufacturing that is really needed to create a bigger brand. So I'm excited. In 5 years, I feel like we'll have like 10 Deep Eddies type successes where everyone across the world knows about them.
Excellent. Amy, how's your crystal ball? Is it broken too, or is it completely functional?
If it's not, I'm borrowing yours, Amy.
I mean, all we know is that change is constant, right? And innovation will be rewarded by the larger food and beverage companies, because we know that consumer tastes are changing quite a lot. We know that we need to evolve our company's business models to be inclusive and sustainable. And I don't think that the largest food and beverage companies are going to lead the way there. They spend less on average on R&D than other industries, right? So what's going to happen is here in Austin, we're going to come up with those solutions. We're going to grow those brands. We're going to show them how it's done. Those brands will get acquired, like you said, we'll have 5 other Deep Eddies. Hopefully we can change the whole world's food and beverage industry from right here in town. I don't know if it's gonna happen in the next 5 years, but we're definitely gonna move the ball in the next 5 years.
Nice, I like that. Okay, we have another great question from our audience. What have you found is the most powerful way to get your brand to be a household name? Is it time? Is it campaigns? How does, if at all, if at all, does the media play into that?
Do you want to be a household name, or do you want a really high revenue business? Because they might not be the same thing. My own experience on Shark Tank and having a lot of media and press, it's awesome. And it doesn't mean that sales are happening in stores. And so I think what you really have to focus on to connect with your community, the people that are going to buy your product that are really your people, is, just old-fashioned community building. I mean, you've got to reach out, you've got to communicate, whether that's through social media and other things, and you got to find out where they are. Of course, Shark Tank, of course, media helps find those people, but I think that authenticity that the brand needs to bring to connect to their core target consumer is the only thing that's actually going to resonate and generate success for the business from that media coverage, if that makes sense. So that's what I'll say. Focus on delighting your core customer consumer, and then once you figure it out, then expand it from there.
Yeah, and I have an interesting perspective on this because I feel like, like Amy said, revenue and the amount of buzz aren't always hand in hand. But there is something to be said about when you create such a unique brand identity that is resonating with the household, the value of that brand is so much more, right? If you think of an iPhone, if Apple drops any device, it's like, oh, did I even need that? But I'll probably buy it because the brand cachet is so high. Or something like Tesla, like it just trades higher and you can actually build almost like a brand essence with less revenue. And if you're an emerging CPG brand, say in Austin, and you're building your brand, I mean, there's something to think about when creating a feeling and emotion behind your brand, because that is what eventually, down the line, you get rewarded for in multiples if it is really unique and resonating on, such a deep level with that household. So, I mean, there is an upside, but I mean, just because everybody knows about it doesn't necessarily mean the revenue is, behind it and supporting
Yeah.
it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we are close to close. I'm gonna, my wind down question is as follows for both of you. And again, thanks for devoting some of your time and expertise, and thanks to our audience for tuning in. I hope you've learned as much about the CPG space as I have. Kirsten, I'll start with you first. Who is your inspiration and or role model in the CPG space, or perhaps it's not even in the CPG space? What inspires you? Who inspires you to keep going in what has been a fairly difficult 2020?
I love Kendra Scott. I mean, I know her personally. I think the world of her. But I mean, talk about somebody who just dreamed so big. I think I grew up in the Midwest, and there's something about my family dynamic that told me just be a little conservative, just don't shoot for the moon. And so when I see people who literally just see this massive, brilliant plan and just fight to get it and create like a great business with like a lot of joy in their, within their work population base and their employees, and I really just, it's inspirational for me.
Cool, great answer. Yeah, Kendra Scott is certainly one of our leading lights in Austin, our biggest assets, and it's amazing to see all the stuff she has done. Amy, same question back to you, and it doesn't have to be someone from Austin. It can, you can go the whole solar system on this one.
Yeah, I do want to shout out a couple of people from Austin, if that's okay. Also women. I want to shout out Joy Chevalier from our community as well for coordinating the Keep Austin Fed program. So this was a program that was developed where, she as a business leader saw that we had, food suppliers that weren't selling food to restaurants, restaurant workers out of work, and also people that needed low-cost, healthy meals that were in need, and helped develop a program, Keep Austin Fed, to provide thousands of low-cost meals to people, just kind of as a rapid fire response to what happened in early March. And so that was really amazing to see. And now she's helping us develop our inclusivity program for the MO track. And then also Genevieve Gilbreth, who has just done so much hard work to build this community from, when she used to have Kirsten's old job or job at SKU to helping start Naturally Austin, and now being one of the first female VCs in consumer CPG as well, and being a trailblazer in that way. So just want to shout out my fellow board members for being awesome female leaders as well, and not quite as famous as Kendra, but doing some really great work. And Kendra is amazing too. And we've got so many awesome, diverse female leaders here in town. So let's just have an awesome award show for all of them where we throw flowers at them because it's really great how many great people we have in this town. I know you said bigger than Austin, but I love Austin so much, so I wanted to keep it at home.
All good. We are going to have one hell of an award show when we can all get back together. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
We may have a little more time to plan it, but there you go. So thanks again for joining us. Keep on doing the awesome work that you guys are doing, or you all are doing. I love the focus on sustainability. I love the focus on more inclusivity. I love bringing another part of Austin to national and international recognition. So again, congrats on all the great work you're doing. Find them at SKU and Naturally Austin. And again, lots of meetups and networking events where you can learn more about the space. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in to this episode of Tech Talk. We have a couple of other great chamber programs coming up. On Wednesday, November 18th, there is the Economic Outlook 2020. And then also on Friday, November 20th, the Future of Air Travel 2021 and beyond. You can find more information on both of those programs at austinchamber.com/events. Thanks, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks again, Kirsten and Amy. Thanks again to all our guests. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks you. Bye, Amy. We'll see you guys all later.